Alrighty, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Uninsured Ankles podcast. Nick Swanson is out, late last minute scratch. I am back, and I am your substitute host, Josh Barton. Hopefully, you just didn't turn off the recording right now and switch to something better now that I'm back. Really enjoyed y'all's episode last week, guys. So hoping for some more goodness tonight with me. As always, is Jordan Stratton and Haley Everett. Guys, I don't know if you saw the stat going around this week. Bradley Beal leads the league in time spent tying his shoes. So my question to both of y'all, can you tie your shoes faster than Bradley Beal?
I sure
What's
hope
the
so. Well, did you see the stat, Haley?
what's the time like per shoe tie?
I didn't see
It's
the
like 18
time.
seconds, which is wild.
That is a
That feels too
long shoe
long.
tie. And also the other one I saw was a breakdown of how much money he makes tying his
Hmm.
shoes. And it was like $21,000 for every second he spent tying his shoes.
Yeah,
And
I saw that one.
yeah, I can only dream.
That's the American dream right there, fellas.
Six
Oh
figures
gosh.
from shoe tying.
That's five for those keeping score at home, but
I mean, yeah, but it's like six figures over the course of
Because
oh
a
yeah.
day.
he's spent what was it like 84 seconds tying his shoes or something like that.
Yeah, it's
And
18 seconds per shoe tie, but then it's the most shoe ties per game. So
Somebody get that man some new shoes or new laces or something.
or
somebody
delay
get
of
the
game.
person tracking that stat of life.
Yeah, that's insane. That's the main thing. There are just so many stats that just don't make any sense. Like how do you have the time or the energy to, because it's not like somebody made a bunch of money collecting that stat. You
Well,
know, uh,
it's the tracking cameras they have in arenas now, the second
right?
spectrum data. It
Yeah.
is everything. It is wild the stuff that they track. So, you know.
I was watching who was it? Oh, it was a Portland Trailblazers game, and Shaden Sharp had some ridiculous dunk that he jumped through the rafters, and they're like, "Wow, that was only an inch shorter than the highest vertical on a dunk for the season so far." And then like 5 plays later, he had another insane dunk, and they're like, "Oh, that one set the record by 5 inches." dude's got like four out of the top 5 or 6 vertical jumps in a for a dunk.
Yeah.
And you know which one doesn't count for that list? Jaws poster on Wemby.
Oh my gosh.
It will live on forever in our minds, though.
Hmm.
It'll probably ESPN will probably still put it on their top like ten dunks of the season, even though it didn't even count. It's like them putting a warm up dunk on the top 10 for the season, and you know it's going to be there too.
Haley, I've got to ask you, how's your Memphis
Hmm.
Grizzlies Kool-Aid taste? Because mine tastes amazing every time I take a sip.
Delicious. Feels like they're putting some 100% vitamin sweetener in there. It's ridiculous. It's not just like nourishing, but it's also satisfying. It's great.
They got some like electrolyte powder in there too.
Hmm.
Jordan, you have any regrets for not hopping on the Memphis bandwagon when you had the opportunity?
Nah, I'm gonna double down and say that they're a first round exit.
Like it, keep the same energy. Today's gimmick or bit or whatever you want to call it, we are bringing three questions to the table and are going to get each other's reaction. So, Haley, what question are you bringing to us?
I know that we really get a good laugh out of trolling certain someone's favorite team. They may or may not have a championship banner hanging behind them at the very moment as we record the pod. Woosah. But are we
Feel my blood pressure
worried?
rising.
Are we worried about the Boston Celtics? And here's some backup behind that before I answer the question. Over their last 16, the Celtics are 500. During that time, they split wins with or and losses, split games with Toronto, Indiana, Chicago, and Orlando. And then, as you know, Josh, they just took an L to the Hawks in overtime last night. And yeah, so here's a couple here's the questions on the whole. Are we worried? Are we selling Celtic stock? Do they need to make a move? And here's my answers. Watched the game last night, caught some bits and pieces of some of these other games, and we talk a lot in our chat, but it just seems like they haven't turned it on yet.
Hmm.
Dudes are just lackadaisical for too long of stretches throughout games, even though they can keep them most of these games like competitive, even if they're games they wind up losing. But it's not that they're not getting the opportunities they want. It's not because they're getting bad looks or they're getting locked up or anything like that. It just looks like they're not locked in, I would say. Um, which is certainly frustrating from a Eastern Conference competitor standpoint. Like it's hard to know where they stack up against Cleveland for real. I mean, I know that they beat Cleveland, but still trying to grapple with, are they as good as I thought they were before the season started? I do, however, think they need to make a move. I'm a little worried about the longevity of their centers. It seems like Kristaps
Hmm.
and Al both are just they just can't stay healthy, and I don't think Kata's going to be able to be that guy in the playoffs if that's who they end up having to run out there for 15 to 20 minutes. That would be concerning to
At
me.
least not with the style of play that they have grown accustomed to running with their centers.
5 out, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to see them if, because my preseason prediction was full stop, Celtics winning the championship, gentleman sweep of whoever. I don't care who comes out of the West. And I'm, like reeling a little bit on that. But I think if I'm a Celtics fan, I'd want them to make a move to bolster their bench a little bit. Um, and yeah, that's my take. They need to turn the switch on a little sooner than I don't know the end of March.
Yeah.
I
I'm gonna go ahead
and
and hop
I'll
in here,
no no
Jordan,
no no please please let me
because oh, okay, I'll let you.
I just want to point out that yeah, I don't want this to turn into a Jason Tatum conversation because the conversation should definitely be about the Boston Celtics as a whole. But uh, my main qualm with Tatum this whole season has been that it feels like he's put on cruise control. And we had a long conversation this week about his hustle on defense. Like, yes, he's getting rebounds, but the Celtics system is set up for him to get rebounds because their bigs don't really go for rebounds. They more clear out and give him space to grab it and go. And then offensively, he spends too much time sitting in the corner and not initiating their offense. And we were looking at stats that were very pro Tatum in that when his usage rate is what was it, like above 35 or something like that,
Hmm.
that the Celtics are 17-2, and that when it's below that threshold they're under 500. And I think that's telling about the fact that there are that many games in the season where his usage rate is below like 35%. He's the best player on their team. It's hard stop.
Hmm.
He's the best player. And when the ball's running through him, their offense is extremely efficient. But the fact that the offense isn't running through him is a knock on him. It has nothing to do with the rest of the players on the floor. He needs to demand the attention of the opposing defense. And he spends way too much time. And glaringly last night in the fourth quarter and overtime, he was not to be found. And shot 33% from the field for the game. Those are the type of games that you can't have out of your star player. I'm not necessarily worried if I'm the Celtics, given that they're still like sitting at aren't they number 3 in the East right now? Didn't they just are they still
Yeah,
2?
there's still two.
It's the Knicks are breathing down our necks, but we're still in
Yeah.
second place.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Knicks have not had a particularly good month either. But moral of the story is they're still sitting in a good spot. The East is super weak. Um, no, I don't think they would be a gentleman's sweep in the finals if they went to the finals today. Um, they do still have the best 5-man lineup in the league, I think. Um, so for me, my concerns are around how they're divvying up their usage, and that someone probably needs to take a
Hmm.
little more command of his own team. Um, but yeah, it's something that we see from a lot of teams around this point of the season, that there's a bit of a backslide, but it's not something that I would be feeling very happy or comfortable with, especially when teams like OKC and the Cavs are having historic seasons so far.
Hmm.
Yeah. To pull back the curtain a little bit for the listener, we did not share our questions with each other prior to recording, and I flip-flopped on doing a similar Celtics take, but it figured the other gentlemen on this pod were a little sick of the Celtics, so thank you, Haley, for bringing this up. Um, I have many thoughts, many, many thoughts. I am a Celtics fan. I am a diehard Celtics fan. I would rank my level of concern as slightly concerned. Um,
Like
one, you,
scale of 1 to 10, like a 4.
well, as I'm sure most people know, Celtics fans and Massachusetts, New England sports fans in general are irrational. So honestly, the fact that we're 500 over our last whatever games, I'm at like a 13. Anytime we lose, it goes automatically to a 10. So being 500 over a 10 game sample size, 10 plus game sample size, I'm silently freaking out. I think it's fair to say the championship hangover is in full effect. The effort isn't there. I would point specifically to the Sacramento game and the Toronto game. In the
Hmm.
Sacramento game, Sabonis just worked us. He had 28 rebounds, and a lot of times rebounding comes down to effort.
Hmm.
And you can just see guys don't want to put a body on him. Like Sabonis is one of the highest motor guys in the league, and our bigs and specifically Porzingis. If for those who don't know, I am a massive Kristaps Porzingis fan. Kristaps Porzingis has not been good this year to start. He's had bright spots. It's always tough coming into an injury, into a season off of injury. Halfway through the season, you don't get a training camp. Everyone's at, mid-season form, and you're coming in and trying to get your legs and trying to get your rhythm. But he hasn't been good. He hasn't been particularly good on defense. Offense, it hasn't been as bad. Defense has been a little alarming. He's never been the best at moving his gigantic 7'3" frame on the perimeter. But teams are attacking him. And also, Jordan mentioned that 5-man lineup of Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, and Derek White. That actually has a negative net rating at the moment, which is definitely alarming. It's a very small sample size because Porzingis just came back,
Hmm.
but it's definitely something of a concern. My concerns would lie the effort's there and the effort's going to get turned on. For historical reference, the Cleveland Cavaliers of God about a decade ago had a one of the worst defenses in the league and then turned it on in the playoffs and
They
just
were
flew
like
to
a
the
four
finals.
seed too.
Yeah, they just coasted through the regular season, didn't put in the effort, and made it to the finals. I don't think that's the year they won. I think it's when they went up against the Juggernaut Warriors, but they made it to the finals. We're not, I mean, we don't have LeBron James. We have a guy that I think is LeBron James light, in Jason Tatum, but you know, this is a team that's made the conference finals, what, 6 of the last 8 years. I'm not overly concerned. The framework's there. They do remind me a little bit of the Nuggets team from last season, where they rode their championship laurels for way too long, and then they had to turn it on late in the season to help with standings, and they were just gassed by the time the playoffs went around. I think we're deeper than that Denver team, but some of the parallels I see between those two and the effort is a little concerning. If I'm criticizing one player, it would be one of the Jays, but it would not be Jason Tatum. Jalen has been very up and down this season.
Ooh.
He had a good game last night, but he always has good games against Atlanta. Being from Georgia, that's one of the teams he always plays good against. But he's kind of been uneven this season. And then Drew Holiday's corner three-pointer was insane last year. He shot, it was like 52% on corner threes, and this year it's dropped significantly. There's a lot of consternation at the beginning of the season over Missoula ball. And I do think we're settling for the easy three. Teams are almost kind of baiting us into that. And we're just not shooting as well as we could.
It's worth noting that that fast PP, aka Peyton Pritchard, has been not very good for
He
about
is
a
returned
month
to
and a
earth.
half. Yeah,
Um, Drew Holiday looks like he's like hitting a wall a little
he
bit
he
to me.
looks he looks a little old, which is
He,
sad.
he's yeah, it's like he's still you can tell he still is what he's always been in terms of like what his strengths are. He's still an elite defender, but
Yeah,
he's a step slower. You can tell he's like a little more he's getting caught with his hands in the cookie jar a little more frequently.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you said, his offense isn't what it was last year. And PP
he's been
is
really
fat.
bad.
His defense in certain matchups, he gets played off the floor. Every
Yeah.
time the Hawks have played them, he's been the worst player on the court. And he like can't play against them.
Yeah. A lot of times his issue is he's just the smallest guy on the court, which you would think, oh, Trey's a great matchup for him, but
He's
he's
not
not a good
fast
point.
enough
He's not a good
for him.
point of attack defender, which is funny considering his nickname is Fast PP. Um, I do think one of your questions, Haley, was do they make a move?
hmm
I think Brad Stevens is one of the three best GMs in the league, and I think he makes a move. We have a fair number of contracts around the $2 million range. Man, if I knew we were doing this, I would have been cooking on the trade machine. But we have a fair number of contracts where we could get a guy. I would like to see. I mean, first name that comes to mind, if we could somehow get Jordan Clarkson, I don't know how that will work with the cap mechanics, but send Peyton Pritchard to Utah for Jordan Clarkson. I don't know if they would do that because Peyton's pretty instrumental to the team, but that would be an amazing addition to improve our bench.
If you get Clarkson, that means he's filling in Hauser and Pritchard,
Yeah.
and then maybe like one of the guards, as relief.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I'm not a Clarkson guy. I've never been super high on Clarkson. I think both of you guys are
I,
in the
I'm not a
I'm
I'm
a
Clarkson
not a
I'm a
Clark
Clarkson guy.
I'm not a Clarkson hater. It could be a decent fit. Feels like they need a little bit more help on the defensive end than the offensive end.
Yeah.
They should not need more help on the offensive end with the other
Yeah.
guys that they have in their lineup.
Well, one thing I'll just put out there is once playoffs come around, the rotation's going to shrink. It's not going to be as many like let this guy create because Jalen did say that at the beginning of the season. He's like, this is a long season. There's going to be nights where we give Peyton the reins. We focus on allowing Hauser to get more opportunities, and we're just going to kind of coast. And we're definitely coasting now. But come playoffs, that the rotation's going to shrink to seven guys. Horford's going to be playing more minutes. I think we'll be ultimately fine. Also, we're in the Eastern Conference. I will say my biggest concern has nothing to do with us and has to do with the other two teams that are just on absolute fire right now, the Thunder and the Cavs. I was doing some digging to my question coming up, and it had to do with team stats. And spoiler alert, basically every team stat, the Thunder are number one, and in some regards, it's not even close. So I am
hmm
very concerned about the Oklahoma City as just a sleeping giant that might not be sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing about them being a sleeping giant is that they've had injuries too. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not like they're even at full strength, which makes it crazy.
Yep.
The Cavs are just an insane offensive team.
Yeah.
The number of times that I have missed their game and have just like pulled up box scores to see what went down, and I see like at least three guys scoring 25
20
points.
plus. Hmm.
Yeah, it's I can't remember the last game, well, except other than the game against the Thunder. I can't remember the last game that they didn't have three guys scoring 20 points. And not
Yeah.
just like you expect Garland and Mitchell to score 20, but pretty consistently, I'd say like three or four out of the last 10 games, that guy has been Allen in the middle, who doesn't shoot
Hmm.
Hmm.
anything other than dunks.
Hmm.
Or maybe the occasional push hook, yeah. But he's been scoring in the mid 20s occasionally.
Yeah.
Their ball movement is ridiculous, and I mean I think that I think they're averaging like 125 points a game or something ridiculous like that.
The Cavs do have the league's best offensive offense with an offensive rating of 121.1, almost better than the number two team. Um, the number two team's kind of surprising. Trivia question: do either of you know who has the league's second best offense?
I would have
The
assumed it was one of those two teams. So um,
the
Under sixth.
yeah, that checks out. They have the crazy defensive
I'll
stats.
give you a hint.
uh
Their coach is probably dying by knowing that their offense is the number two offense and not their defense.
Is it the Knicks?
It is the Knicks.
oh my
And then-
gosh. I
But the
thought it was
Number
the
two
Grizzlies. Aren't the
offense.
Grizzlies
Yeah,
up
the
there?
Grizzlies are fifth, so it goes Cavs, but
Okay.
then the Cavs are two percentage points higher than the Knicks, and then Knicks, Celtics, Nuggets, Grizzlies, Thunder, Kings, Mavericks, Rockets, Suns. Defensive rating is the more interesting one. The Oklahoma City Thunder have a defensive rating of 103. The next closest
Oh yeah.
team is at 107, 4 percentage points higher.
Yeah.
So the Thunder are the Thunder are pretty impressive. I am contractually obligated to point out that the Thunder are mid, Shea is mid, Tatum is better. Jordan, on to your question.
Well, that's this. This is a good segue. My question is if you guys were to start an NBA franchise, like if you were given the reins of an organization and
I love this.
you got to pick one thing, and I'm not it's not not one player. And so I'll go first with my answer because I think it should give you an idea of what I mean. Um, Pick one thing about a team or anything in the NBA to bring into your organization. What would it be? For me, I am bringing in OKC's front office.
Mm.
Um, the work that they've done. I mean, even outside of the product that they're putting out on the court right now, and we can attribute that to the players and coaching staff a lot as well. And so maybe I'll you know fudge my own rules a little bit and say that the coaching staff is part of my front office. But um, even if all I'm getting is the actual like GM and the people around him, Sam Presti is a genius in that front office. And so I think with the moves that they made to acquire all the picks that they've done, and not only acquiring the picks, but then using them to make such beautiful selections. They haven't had a single bust come out of their picks, and even the players that didn't pan out the way that they wanted to, they've been able to ship out basically right away for new pieces that have fit right away, i.e., Hartenstein. So the work that front office has done is, I think, even more responsible for how successful that organization has been the last couple years, and they've only set themselves up for a decade of success with the picks that they've stocked up, with all the youth that they have on their team, the contracts being as small as they are. I mean, they're set up to potentially go after one of the big name stars to bolster their team, um, because they have so many picks and uh, young guys who are performing well and on low contracts makes them very maneuverable, which is super valuable with the new CBA. So if I'm starting an organization from scratch, I'm bringing in OKC's front office.
Haley, do you agree with that? Or do you have something better?
I'll need to think about my choice.
While you're thinking, I'll just hop in and say we can include the coaching staff as part of the front office because I just want to talk about Mark Dagnall and the fact that he was a G League coach and he's one of the youngest coaches in the league. I don't know if he played basketball after college. I don't even know if he played in college, honestly. I don't know if he ever played in middle school the way he looks, but like he is an amazing coach and just his ability to get those guys to buy in. A lot of times when you have that many young guys, it's like a bunch of, dogs fighting over each other. Um, all trying to eat the same meal, but he has guys buying in. Um, as much as I hate to admit it, they do have a bunch of dogs on the court. Um, Even if I hate those post-game interviews. But Sam Presti as a GM is insane. They have the support of ownership. I don't know if that extends to the front office. So that's a pretty good one. Um, if you
I,
think
I'm
about
gonna I'm gonna pause you real quick. I just looked it up. He did not play in college. He was a 4-year student manager at UConn.
oh wow.
Gosh.
Oh, that's right. He grew up in Massachusetts. Yeah, so that's kind of wild too. The reason why I mentioned that is Sam Presti, when he was like 16 years old, I don't know if y'all have heard this story. It was when the Celtics were absolutely terrible, and I want to say it was when we traded Chauncey Billups like 3 months into his rookie season. He wrote into the Boston Globe basically in a very eloquent way, saying that the Celtics GM was incompetent and trading Chauncey Billups was one of the dumbest decisions ever. And it
That's
resurfaced. Bill
amazing.
Simmons, brought it up, 25 years later. Um, they're kind of like what the Spurs were, in their heyday. I think the Spurs have taken a step back as an organization. I don't think they're the Clippers of our youth, but the Spurs have taken a step back. I My gut reaction is I don't know if that would be my selection. I think, I'm a homer, but I think the Celtics have a good front office, coaching staff combination. It terrifies me that the Celtics are for sale and we have no idea what the ownership's going to be. Um,
And let me
Miami,
remind you, players are on the table.
yeah. I mean, my gut reaction to your question is if I'm starting a team, just give me Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I know Jordan's not the biggest Wemby guy, but each day it gets more and more ridiculous. And if I'm starting a team, players win championships, as good as the front office may be. Haley, your Hawks had their five starters were the player of the month. And how many championships did y'all get out of it? The Denver Nuggets are semi-dysfunctional, have the cheapest owner of all of sports, and they have the best player in
Hmm.
the league, and kind of stumbled into them, and they got a championship out of it. Uh, I think my gut reaction would be players win games. I want to be a hater. I've really taken this OKC hater corner, and I think I'm going to say that they don't get any championships. That might be egg on my face later, but I'm double downing on my OKC position. Give me Victor Wembanyama if I'm starting a team. It'll be elite defense just from the jump.
Yeah.
Haley, do you have an answer?
I got some thoughts on what y'all said. Number one, yeah, I think you just take Victor and like he
Boo.
he's just gonna be this is the thing. He is the generational superstar that nobody's seen before, and that will change an organization. Like the Spurs, obviously, they've already got history and culture, and they've got like the things that are behind them that like that support themselves. But if he went to, I don't know, you name it, like the Thunder would have been a good example if they weren't great right now.
Like, are you
Um,
thinking a dysfunctional team?
yeah. The
Thing is,
Kings, like if he went to
Yeah.
the Kings, I know the Kings had some good years, but he would like he would rejuvenate because I know they had the whole like the beam thing, but like the Kings would have
Light
a
the Beam was
worldwide
so
brand.
fun. Like even if you didn't like the Kings, Light the Beam was so good.
Yeah, like the beam was good. But
Still
that's the
is.
thing. That's the thing. It would be like a worldwide brand. Wherever he is, it's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. But and I think I've said on the pod before that the Thunder won't win a championship because I don't think the CBA is going to allow to keep all these dudes together. Like it's too much money, and they don't have that much money. Like that,
Yeah.
yeah, they've got a great front office and everything, but still don't have the money to fund that entire team
Steve Ballmer
forever.
is not their owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or Matt Ishbia or whoever. Yeah.
right. The thing that they have in their favor on that front is they've got the
Bird
contracts right
rights.
now are tiny and they have all the picks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you take one or two of those contracts, tie it with three of their 15 first round picks, and you bring in Jalen Johnson, and then immediately your team's taken up to a next level, but you're bringing in a guy that hasn't gotten to his, super max level yet. They can, because they have all these picks, they can re-up the young superstars and capitalize on those early years. um, or they can swing for the fences and get one of the guys that just signed a supermax and know that they've got Shea and that player locked down for at least 3 or 4 years. And some of those pieces are going to want to stay with the organization just because they like the organization. Yes, some of them are going to leave because they want to get the bag. But if you're treating folks, I mean, Shea just talked about that in an interview. He was like, yeah, OKC's a small market team, but I'm not going anywhere because I love showing up to work every day.
Yeah.
The organization treats me well. The coaching staff treats everybody well. We're all on the same page. We got a good thing going. Obviously, it's not going to be like that forever. You can't expect that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows forever. But if the organization is running things that way, and you've got guys that are really good role players that are willing to, you know, be a 20 mil 3 year kind of guy, or even 25 for a couple years, they'd have enough space to work with. So we'll see. I think they should swing for the fences on one of the supermax guys and lock down two superstars for the next 4 years, with all the picks that they have, because the picks they have just are ridiculously valuable. But that's just me.
I have a question for you, Jordan, on the topic. Given Sam Presti's track record of just being amazing and outfoxing guys, do they get to the point where other teams don't really start doing business with them and how good he's been starts to hurt them? Because Danny Ainge kind of got to that point. I sometimes question the validity of anything Danny Ainge said because he apparently could have traded for prime Michael Jordan for a box of pasta and a half-used piece of aluminum foil. So you know, may or may not be true, but the thing with Danny Ainge is he was always so good that teams wouldn't do business with him because they were worried that, what am I missing? What am I missing? Do you think how good Presti has been, does that adversely affect him and creates a scenario where they're stuck with these picks because teams aren't willing to do business with them?
I don't think so. Because the picks are only becoming more and more valuable, and I think
Mm,
everybody in the league knows that. Like, I mean, there's a reason why basically every trade for a star right now has included at least three firsts. And
mm,
it's because every front office in the league knows that the skill pool of young guys is just getting more and more deep. That doesn't mean that they're all like fantastic prospects, but just the bags that each of these prospects are coming into the league with means that there's just so much more talent out there to get, and a better chance of hitting on somebody that's going to fit well with your team. So I think the bait is going to be too much to pass up, and they're going to get some bites, even
Mm,
if and I think you could very well see it be something that the teams that Thunder trade with become better in the long run because they make the trade. I don't think it's going to be like a pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. If you're they've got the resources that they can't use all the picks that they
yeah.
have because they just won't be able to sign those guys to an active roster, and like they need to move some of the picks. So it's going to be a win for the Thunder to get rid of some picks, which means that you might get some teams to get more value out of the trading of a star, because they know that the Thunder need to move those picks. Um, so I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, like I said, I think they should swing for a star, because especially with how deep the NBA has been getting,
Hmm.
we are no longer in the era of three-peats. That is, I just, and with the new CBA, you're not able to, you know, create big threes like you used to. It's just not a possibility. And that's another reason why I don't get all the slander that a bunch of guys in today's NBA get about not winning championships. It's
Hmm.
it's way harder to win a championship in today's NBA than it ever was before. The talent pool is way deeper. There's more teams who all have a star of some sort on them. So yeah, it's I think their window is smaller than we think, uh, because the talent depth in the league is so massive. So swinging for a star seems like a good move.
Yeah, the one
I
thing I
think
will just say to that, it is off topic, but just to put a bow on it, if the Celtics don't repeat this year, this will be the longest stretch in NBA history without a repeat champion. Um, and that kind of goes to tell you how deep the league is. And I believe the current record that we're tied from is from the 70s, when there
hmm,
was a competing league. So there was a drainage in the talent pool, and guys were flip-flopping leagues. So we'll see. Haley, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say that the short windows are also why I think it's going to make it that much more challenging for the Thunder to win one because
Yeah.
between now, like it's basically got to be this year, and and I know I'm being really short-sighted, but next year we're going to see another, somebody else is taking the leap, somebody else's core group is going to be taking that leap. It could be like, I don't know, the are a super long shot, but you got Pistons, Rockets, Grizzlies. You have teams who are like measurably better than they've been in the past couple years, and they don't really have a reason to get worse right now.
I think
And
I think the scary thing though about the Thunder is they're still like the second youngest team in the league,
Yeah.
or second or third.
yeah,
So yes, other teams are going to be taking the jump, but realistically, so should the Thunder's players.
Yeah.
We could have one of the most insane, like pure drafted teams since since our like
since the
2015
last
16
Thunder.
Warriors.
Yeah.
Oh
um
yeah.
yeah, with Clay, Curry, and Draymond, that you know they don't have a third star on the team yet. But I mean, who's to say who couldn't take that leap from their rotational players?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well, the, I mean, Chet is their third star. He's just hurt, and Hartenstein is their equivalent to Harrison Barnes, like in terms of pecking order. But he basically fills the gaps of everybody else, which we talked about on our original pod. Um, but yeah, it's like you said, their injuries are when you actually consider them, you the Thunder are ridiculous. Like I feel silly for thinking that they weren't gonna be where they are now that we're seeing them like come together and yeah, they're still injured.
Yeah. I think it ultimately comes down to the move that they make that Jordan alluded to, because we've kind of seen this movie before. They were a little more advanced, but they had Durant and Westbrook and Harden, and they had Jeff Green as a young guy, and they
And
famously
Serge Ibaka
traded
And
too.
him
Ibaka.
and Ibaka, and they had Jeff Green, and they famously traded him from their young core for Kendrick Perkins, and that didn't really do anything. League was a little bit different at the time, so I won't completely poo-poo Kendrick Perkins, but
But on the flip side, you got the Warriors who ended up getting KD. And
yeah,
I know that the obviously the CBA is not going to allow for the movement the same way, but still, there's still something. There's obviously something that can be done with all
yeah,
those picks. And yeah, I don't think Sam's got a bad reputation for like pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. Like Paul
I
George
also
was still very good
yeah,
when he got
I
traded.
also don't see any of the players, and I mean, who knows? We'll find out in a couple years, I'm sure. I don't see any of the players on the Thunder being uh their stance on the team changing with the tides, quite like Kevin Durant and James Harden. They both the story with James Harden is that he had gotten a bug in his ear from some other star players at like Camp USA or whatever. Like, dude, you should be running your own team. And he was like, oh, I guess I could. And so he went and did it. I don't get the vibe from that team that they would. I think they like playing together. At least that's what it looks like. Who knows what happens 2 years down the road? Someone's going to want to get their bag, but
yeah. That Thunder team had two of the most mercurial stars in NBA history, and even when they were winning and going to the finals, there were still all the rumors of be like, do these guys like playing with Westbrook? So yeah. Any other thoughts on the Thunder?
yeah, since the topic wasn't even about the Thunder, but that's
Yeah.
sure as heck how it started. Did we have any other alternative answers besides Wemby?
I mean, honestly, I think the Thunder are in such a position that it's hard to pick anything other than Wemby. Jokic came to mind, and we are in a players league, so we kind of go to players. The Heat's organizational stability is something that we probably need to mention. Um,
Yeah.
I, you know, I,
Is
I'm
the one
fam
thing we're going to bring in heat culture?
I'm famously like absolutely paranoid of the Miami Heat. They're going to be a playing team. They're going to be either the 7 or the 8 seed, and then they're going to push whoever, and God forbid it's the Celtics, whoever they go against in the first round to 6, 7 games, and they're just going to slog it out. And if you have a mistimed injury like Milwaukee had, you're going to lose to the Heat. The zombie Heat, you can't make them die. I don't know. I mean, it might be Eric Spoelstra. Like if we're saying things that we're making a team. Give me Eric Spoelstra. The Heat role players, it's pretty like infamous now how bad Heat role players are when they leave the Heat. I think Eric Spoelstra might be in that conversation.
Yeah, I was just talking with a couple of my family members yesterday about um how much I enjoy watching high school basketball because you can see the impact of coaching every single game. And Spoelstra is one of the few NBA coaches where you can see his impact every single game. Definitely not a bad pick.
I can't think of anything else though. LeBron James in his prime would probably been one of the contenders,
Not
but
anymore.
yeah, not anymore. Um, I'll go to mine because there's an interesting LeBron point ahead in here that is not even LeBron intended. But how about we talk about James Harden's new team, the Los Angeles Clippers?
Mm.
Um, my question is pretty straightforward. Are the Clippers good? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Because I went back and I listened to our preseason prediction pod, and we barely talked about them. Jordan panned them. We all picked the under on them, I believe, and they're on pace to hit the over. They're fifth in the West right now. Both Los Angeles teams being in the top six in the Western Conference is honestly not something I had on my bingo card. Um, but it's kind of crazy that the Clippers are one of the best teams in the juggernaut Western Conference. Um, and this is without Kawhi Leonard. Now, I would put no stock into Kawhi Leonard.
You should not.
Kawhi Leonard has played 4 games and is averaging 20 minutes a game. He also might injure his knee and never be seen from for 3 years. He also might kill it the rest of the regular season like he has the last few years, get to the playoffs and get hurt game one, and that's it. With that said, the Clippers kind of have a good team. So James Harden is one of 5 players in the NBA averaging 20 points and 8 assists. The other 4 guys are Nikola Jokic, Trae Young, Cunningham, and LeBron James, octogenarian LeBron James. It's just insane. Like LeBron's, not to go on a LeBron tangent, but his productivity, he is 40 years old. Cade, I think is still on his rookie contract. I think next year is the year that he hits the first year of his rookie scale supermax. Trey, I think, is 25, 26.
Yeah, he's
Um,
26.
26.
Harden's not a spring chicken. He's like 30, 35 himself.
Yeah.
And then Jokic is the best player alive. Um, but for LeBron to do that is insane. But the Clippers, so James Harden being good is something I was not expecting to happen. Like if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season who would have had a better year, Paul George or James Harden, I would have said hands down Paul George, and I would have been hands down 100 million% wrong. The other thing is, speaking of Paul George, Norm Powell, uh, is just like, give me all the shots. I loved his preseason quote when they asked him about what is the loss of Paul George mean? And he said, I get to shoot
Addition by,
more.
yeah, and he
And
said addition by subtraction.
he's averaging 23 points a game on it's 50 54 50 40 80, but it's like 45% from two, or sorry, 54% from two and like 45% from three. So, doing it on amazing efficiency. We're at the midpoint of the season, so this is a fairly big sample size.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
Avi-
did not have that on my bingo card, and I probably should have. I mean, that's what I was talking about regarding the Clippers at the beginning, is like who was going to do anything besides James Harden.
yeah.
And I was looking at some of their role players, did not, I'm a Norman Powell fan, but I didn't think he had more than 15, 16 points a game in his bag. So,
Yeah. And
tip of the cap.
you rarely see a jump like that from a guy who is 31 years old.
Yeah.
That's a jump for a guy who's like in his early to mid 20s, not a guy who's been in the league 10 plus years. Ivica Subats, throwback big, averaging one of the best rebounders in the league, good finisher, great partner with James Harden. And then we were just talking about coaches a minute ago with Spoelstra. Ty Lue, one of the best coaches in the league. It got to the point where things were a little ridiculous with Ty Lue when they were calling him the Bill Belichick of the NBA. But now I
Hmm.
think we've gotten to the point where now he went from being extremely overrated to being underrated. Because I didn't read the second best defense in the league just a minute ago, because that second best defense is the Los Angeles
Is
Clippers.
Clippers.
The
Yeah.
Los Angeles Clippers that are employ James Harden as their starting point guard have the second best defense in the league. And that is just bonkers to me. So hats off to Ty Lue for that one. I have more stats, but I will pass it to you guys. What do we think of the Clippers? Are the Clippers good? Is this sustainable? What is going on?
They're good. Like they're good. I
Period.
we've we brought them up briefly, like I think like maybe one-liners pod to pod because Norman Powell obviously has been ridiculous. We talked about um Trey Mann. This has been a long time ago, and I think he's out right
Yeah,
now.
he's been
But
hurt.
Yeah.
but Derrick Jones Jr. is now their new point of attack defender and like an a complete dog. Everybody loves Derrick Jones Jr. Like, and
Freak
then
athlete.
freak athlete. Yep, and he's that like he's Swiss Army knife on defense and can play on ball and can also rim protect as a long, thin, lanky guy who's a more of a wing defender than he is. a big. But then they're getting like really good production from Amir Coffey, Kevin Porter Jr. As much as
Done.
like none of us want, yeah, whatever. Uh, being productive,
But
and
is the like
yeah,
eighth guy, Kevin Porter Jr., is kind of a luxury to have as a guy off the bench when he was a starter for Houston a couple years ago.
well, I don't think he was going to be anything more than an eighth guy anywhere in the league. To be fair, he probably shouldn't be here. But Chris Dunn also has had his career rejuvenated for like a third time. But like shout out to Chris Dunn, also ridiculous defender, but
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
also producing on offense for them. Like has been like a willing shooter, I'll say. Like
Yeah.
to, and yeah, it just adds up for them. Um,
I mean, yeah, they've
when
they've essentially got three or four like high level, you know, top quartile of the league, point of attack defenders. And then Zoo has been playing decent rim protection
Mhm.
defense in the middle. So if you've got three or four guys that are stopping penetration on the outside and then a 7'1" behemoth sitting in the middle, that's going to be
Yeah.
a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
This is, I'm just sitting here thinking through the parallels of this team, and I can't put the year on it, but some of these James Harden Rocket teams where it was Capella, Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, like you can see Trevor Ariza not that dissimilar to Derrick Jones Jr. in
Mm.
terms of like defensive attributes. Eric Gordon, Norm Powell is like that's a pretty good parallel from like prime Eric Gordon.
Prime Eric Gordon
Um,
was fun.
a bucket.
Yeah.
Um,
You
we'll see
hit
what
Joe
happens
Johnson
with
with a
Kawhi.
shrimp ray.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, just this way because
Yeah.
he,
He's the same width for sure.
He's
Just
yeah.
a
a
little
beefy boy.
Oh, anyways, I think they're good. Um, I'm surprised. Obviously, like I had the under on them, and I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah.
But like you said, Ty Lue, great coach, obviously knows how to get the most out of his guys and setting up Zubac and Harden and Powell for success and like I don't know, winning from it. It's kind of
I really want to be out on the Clippers. But I am I love good defense more than most things in the NBA, especially good team defense, because we just have seen less and less of it as the league has progressed. Part of that is because the offensive players are getting better, but some of that is just less and less focus on that side of the ball. So seeing how well they play defensively makes it really hard for me to dislike them. Um, do I think that they're the fifth best team in the Western Conference? No, I don't. So I'm curious to see. You know, usually down the back stretch of the season, we're going to see some of those top teams really kick it into gear and find a groove. I think that they probably are a play-in team. My
mm,
guess is that they finish around the 7 seed. Um, but yeah, I can't my initial slander to start the season was definitely unfounded, and part of that was is I did not see them being the number two defense in the league, and you gotta tip your cap to them there, and then Norman Powell having a breakout at 30 plus is nuts.
unreal.
You
Yeah.
love to see it.
A couple things that strike me about that kind of lean towards them being less real. Their over 500 record isn't, it's not terrible, but it's not great. But also, the Memphis Grizzlies over 500 records also not that good. It's 13 and 12. But anyways, which is worse than the Rockets by quite a bit and worse than the Nuggets by quite a bit, which is um, if we have any time, like we need to talk about the Nuggets at some point. Not today. But yeah, the Clippers are under 500 against teams over 500, and that's not ideal. They're 11 and 2 against teams below 500.
What are the Lakers? I'm pretty sure our over 500 record sucks.
It's not good. 11 and 16.
Yeah,
but
that's
11
tough.
and 1 against teams under 500, which is
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's
the
pretty
fact
dang
that
good.
we've played 27 games already against teams over 500 says something about what we might see down the back half of the season. So that means we've
Hmm.
played a ton of our tougher schedule already.
Yeah.
So we'll
Well,
see.
one point on that is you guys are in the Pacific Conference. You have the Clippers over 500, you have Sac over 500, you have the Warriors over 500, and Phoenix is over 500. So four of your division rivals are over 500.
Yeah,
So, I mean
Sac
that,
wasn't over 500 when we played them the first couple times, so those did not count. But I think that's actually our one loss was a double overtime game against Sac. Um, that's probably the one under 500 loss. But now we can look at that one and say, well, you know, a little bit better of a loss.
yeah. So I think where I ultimately land with the Clippers is kind of like what I think Haley, you were just the one that said it. Is I think they're a playing team. Um, I think so. Below them in the standings is Dallas and Minnesota. Luka's been out. I'm praying to the Slovenian baby Jesus that Luka is actually working out while he is on his injury hiatus, and he's not at hookah bars drinking rakia and doing whatever else Luka enjoys doing. That doesn't involve working out and staying in shape. But you've got to think if Luka comes back and is Luka the Mavericks are going to pass them. The Minnesota's a little concerning. We need to talk about Denver. Shout out Russell Westbrook. Shout out me for being right about Russell Westbrook. Um, hashtag humble brag. But Minnesota is confounding, and I don't really know what to make of them. They should be good, and maybe people just hate playing with Julius Randle. I don't know, but I think the second half of the season, when people really start to lock in after the All-Star break, I think Minnesota goes on a run. One of the things I was looking at when I was pouring through the stats of the Clippers being good is they are one of the best teams in the league in defending the three-pointer. I know a lot of that can go to scheme, and again, Ty Lue, great coach, great defensive scheme. Some of that's just shooting variance and shooting luck. And I just went through the conference that they're in and the teams they're going to play. Also, the Suns got Nick Richards, so now they're going to win the title. So it's basically over for the rest of the Western Conference. Quick shout out. I want to shout out my brother. Today is his birthday. He is a big Clippers fan. So I have to
Hey, happy
figure out a way to
birthday.
support him, the Clippers.
Woo!
He's also one of our biggest listeners. He listens to both the Spotify posting and the YouTube posting. So shout out my brother George. Hopefully the Jordan doesn't have as good a night as George does with the Clippers beating the Lakers tonight. So, shout out my brother. Um, I think he would tell you that the Clippers are going to win the Western Conference, maybe win the title, but sometimes we can be irrational.
Well, just a little preview for our next podcast. We had gotten some feedback from some
Hmm.
listeners, a couple thoughts about some potential guys that are coming to the NBA next year, and just a topic, a question for us to discuss on the pod. So we'd like to open that up to other listeners as well. If you have a question, a topic, anything on those lines that you would like us to hash through, send us a DM on Instagram, send us an email, uninsuredankles@gmail.com, and we'll go through those and pick a handful to discuss on our next podcast.
Thank you for that, Jordan. And thank you all for your support, listening to us, watching on YouTube. Greatly appreciate it. As always, follow, subscribe, do all the things the social media channels want you to do. We really appreciate your support. If you're outside of the US, follow us on TikTok, although I don't know if we have any more TikTok content. I don't know if we ever had any TikTok content, but it's a new day. Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. That's where you'll find us. As always, keep your friends close and your ankle braces even tighter. All right, y'all. Have a good night.
At
Did I
some
butcher the
point,
ending?
we'll say maybe we should just make it a thing now that we say it
It's just
different
wrong.
every
Yeah.
What
single
did I say
time.
wrong?